Welcome to the 2007 School Committee Candidates Night, sponsored by Wilmington Community Television and the Wilmington League of Women Voters. My name is Robert Hayes, and I'll be your moderator. This year, we have 4 candidates seeking 3 seats on the Wilmington School Committee. Let's meet them. Mr. Daniel Ardito, Mrs. Joan Duffy, Mrs. Peggy Kane, and Mrs. Judy O'Connell. Tonight's Candidates Night will be divided into 3 portions. In the first portion, members of the local media will each ask 3 questions of the candidates. Candidates will be allowed up to 2 minutes to reply to each question. In the second portion, audience members will have the opportunity to submit questions to me, which I will then ask to the candidates. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. And in the final portion, each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute closing statement. The order in which the candidates respond was randomly determined moments ago. Before the questioning begins, however, let's first meet our local press panel. Mrs. Alexandra Mayer Hodal of the Lowell Sun, Mr. Stephen Bjork of the Wilmington Town Crier, and Mr. Franklin Tucker of the Wilmington Advocate. The first question will be asked by Mrs. Mayer Hodal, and Mrs. O'Connell will be responding.
All right. So the school committee recently decided to forego a national search for a new superintendent, instead directly appointing Assistant Superintendent Joanne Benton. Do you agree with this decision?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I 100% agree with that decision, and my reason for that is a multifaceted answer. First of all, I think from a financial standpoint, it makes the most sense in terms of a budgetary aspect to promote from within when it's feasible. Joanne Benton has had a full array of activities that she has been a part of, not only at Wilmington High School, but also with the Wilmington Public Schools in general. And coming from Lexington, she has had a principalship there in which she was highly successful. And I think that Wilmington was very fortunate to have her on board with us from the very beginning. She has been instrumental in the curriculum and professional development, and she has also been very instrumental in the full-day kindergarten that has just been passed unanimously by the school committee. Those are just 2 very prime examples where she has been very instrumental, and they are key examples of how she has led with leadership and has had the faculty and staff, the children and parents of Wilmington at the forefront at all times. And I really am a firm believer in the town promoting from within, and if we have the skill set and the expertise within the town of Wilmington, I feel that we should not look abroad. And I welcome the opportunity to potentially work with her if I am elected to the school committee. I believe that she will be an integral role, key player in the Wilmington school system for the future, and I really am very pleased that we are in contract negotiations with her at this time. And I think it'll be a great day in Wilmington Public School history when she's named officially our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kane?
Yes, thank you. When we first brought Joanne Benton to our school system, she came as an offset to our superintendent's skills. He had his background in high school, and she had a background in elementary school. So they made a very nice match. Everything that Judy just said, I totally agree with. I think the town has seen what Joanne is capable of, what she has done. She has brought a research base to all of the information that she gives to us as a school committee. The reports that we have, which are on file at the superintendent's office, if anyone ever wants to go and see what kind of work Joanne actually has been doing in the last couple of years. The reports are fantastic. She gets everyone involved. She has the respect of the entire school system. I've never heard a complaint about her in the 2.5 years that she's been here. People have been thrilled with what she's brought to the school system. She knows the latest. I just emailed her something I received from Leslie College about a free program for teachers, and she emailed me back today and said, I've already gotten that and I've sent it out to the staff. So she is on top of everything, and we are I can't say enough how lucky we are in Wilmington to have the quality of Joanne Benton as an educator in our system and as our next superintendent. So we are thrilled to have her. Thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Thank you. I think any organization, you want to build depth and knowledge in your staff, and I think that's one of our achievements in Wilmington these last few years. Mr. McAuliffe, when he came in, he did an excellent job assembling his team, and we were fortunate enough through our process that we recognized Mrs. Benton as our assistant superintendent, and then bringing her in and seeing what she's done these last 3 years has been phenomenal. And I think when, unfortunate to Wilmington, but fortunate to Mr. McAuliffe, he got an opportunity to become a superintendent at Winchester. We were fortunate that our best choice was probably our assistant superintendent. And I think the students of Wilmington are echoing the sentiment. I know that the faculty thinks very highly of her. She's amazingly, she's committed to their professional development. She's looking into enrichment programs. She's constantly concerned with the faculty's best interests and ultimately with the students' best interests. So I mean, I honestly, I think we could have done a search, but I think with the timing, it probably wasn't warranted. And I think we're very fortunate that we were able to come to a preliminary agreement with Ms. Benton, and I think the students of Wilmington are better off for it. Thank you.
Mrs. Duffy?
I echo everything everyone has said. We have been very fortunate the last couple of years, basically to have 2 superintendents on board for Wilmington Public Schools. Mrs. Benton came to us, having previously been the superintendent in Lexington, and did a fine job over there, and then came to us and supported our superintendent with all of her endeavors. She has been an integral part in the development of our curriculum, the push for a curriculum review plan that we have in place to continually review all of our documents. As Peggy had said, her documentation when we got reports on anything that we requested as a school board were flawless. She responded to every question that we had and made sure that we as a committee understood what was before us, and that's the key being on a school board, is that you want to know every angle of what is being proposed, and you want to do your background and your research, and she's always given us that, and truly, she is the best candidate. We didn't need to do a search because she was right there and willing to step forward because she loves this community as much as we do, and she respects it. We appreciate that.
The second question will be asked by Mr. Bjork, and Mrs. Kane will be the first to respond.
During the debate surrounding a proposed new library for Wilmington, many opponents articulated a dire need for a new high school in town. Do you feel that a new high school is a priority for this community? And if so, how would you begin the process toward achieving that goal?
Thank you for the question. I would have to say that no, at this point, I do not feel a new high school is a priority for the community. My feeling is that years ago, when this town was trying to determine whether we would have a new high school or a middle school, it was determined that we didn't, with the new rules of how much space you needed for a high school, you had to have the fields, enough space for playing fields, that we decided as a town and a community that we would invest in a new middle school. I would have to say that most people would agree that once you put in a new middle school, you would think it's only a matter of time until there's a new high school, because people will be used to the beauty of that new middle school, the technology, the rooms, the newness of it. But in fact, I don't believe anything has changed since the last time. I think that we do not have the space in this town under the new state laws for a new high school. I also think people may not know or may forget that the $1 million that were left over from the middle school was used by the town to put $1 million worth of improvements in the high school. We don't need the space at this point. We only will have next year approximately 1,000 students in the school. And so for those reasons, the other part of it is, however, we are undergoing a survey now of our school buildings, and that survey would be the beginning of looking at a new high school, a possibility of a new high school. So those results, if it came out that there would be a new high school and we could do it, I still, at this point, would not support it. I don't think we need it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Yeah, thank you. I think where we need more involvement from the community. I think we need to review all our facilities and see what's the priority to the community. And I think with that, we need to go and speak with our state legislatures and see what kind of funding might be available and try to coordinate timing on this. Sooner or later, we'll need new facilities. It's just a matter of taking advantage of funding from the state as well as the opportunities and needs for the community. I think we can leverage off of communities that are going through building a new high school like Woburn. We can learn through some of their trials and tribulations and understand how they went through their process, learn from some of their wins as well as some of their issues that they encountered. And I think ultimately we want to provide state-of-the-art facilities for our students, but it has to be a cost-benefit approach where we're not sacrificing putting the community at risk just to be short-sighted to go above and beyond. So I think it's a delicate line, but I think it's something we need to address and we need to be cognizant of and keep in our definitely our agenda.
Mrs. Duffy?
I think the biggest thing in regards to the possibility of a new high school is the fact that we are just getting underway in the feasibility study of all of the facilities that the school department has. So I really don't feel that I can speculate how that's going to turn out because it's a very comprehensive review that they will be doing. They'll be looking at everything within the buildings, the infrastructure, the outside, every aspect of the building. And that will really determine the direction that the school department will need to go with its buildings. The high school is the oldest building. At this time, it does have enough space for the population that we have and that we will have coming up from the middle school. But all of the facilities, the wiring for computers, I'm not sure where all of that stands until we get a comprehensive review. And that will be happening, so we'll wait for that.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Yes, thank you. I think in every town you always want to have state-of-the-art facilities and technology, and I think that the town of Wilmington needs to continue to look at the concept of having a new building. I think, as the other three candidates have clearly articulated and conveyed, that right now the town of Wilmington is not in a position to put a new building up at this time. From a funding perspective and from a feasibility, I think we're still in the beginning phases of the report analysis to see what are the strengths of having a new building, what are the potential weaknesses, what are the opportunities. And I think a utilization study to see how the existing footprint, the building is used today, will help us better determine if we're able to do that and if it makes sense. My concern is overall is that we have clearly received information from the town manager, Michael Carr, at the selectmen's meeting and also at the school committee that the FY08 budget is in solid form. However, in FY09, we are going to be looking at some financial particular issues and how do we handle those. So I think right now we're in the beginning stages that we need to really be careful as to how we spend our money going forward. And having been raised in the town of Wilmington and having attended Wilmington Public Schools K through 12, the beauty of Wilmington is that we offer a full array of extracurricular activities and different things for every student in Wilmington Public Schools, and I would not want to jeopardize that just to have a bigger footprint or a bigger building. And I think we need to make clear decisions as to what trade-offs we might have to do away with in order to have that. Thank you.
The third question will be asked by Mr. Tucker and will be responded first to by Mr. Ardito.
Hi, Mr. Ardito. How are you? And the other candidates? Businesses seem to be eager to help out schools, not only in Wilmington but all throughout the state. I mean, I only had to have gone to the middle school last week to attend the technology fair. Analog Devices brought their engineers, they brought the money, and everybody seemed to have a great time. How would you, as a member of the school board, facilitate more private-public dialogue and relationship with businesses in town? And also, could you see maybe a time where the Wilmington schools could give away the naming rights to certain places like a football field or a high school, such as, or a high school auditorium, Analog Devices football field at Wilmington High School?
Excellent question, and I was reading the American Schools magazine today and was talking about balancing funding and commercialization of school districts. And the first part of your question, building business partnerships, that's something I'm very much for. I'm the school committee representative to the Educational Foundation, and they're out there looking to form these business partnerships in the community. And I believe when I looked at the Wilmington census, I think they listed over 700 businesses in town, and some of them are sole proprietors to 1,000 employer companies. And I think as a community, everyone benefits from, trying to leverage resources and skills. I mean, I think we can do a better job of reaching out to businesses and letting them know what our needs are. And in return, we could maybe provide opportunities to them through internships or through other co-op programs. And that's something over these next 3 years, if elected, or even in general, I want to be a part of. And I'm proud the Educational Foundation kind of reinvigorated itself this year. They put on a great performance with the Ball in the House performance. We've been out there applying for grants through local businesses, and it's something that I want to see continue. And I think through the communication, it's accessible to us. I think the more we can spread the word to the community and let them know what kind of grants and business partnerships are out there, the better we can all be.
And what about the naming rights, like a Michael Pizza's lunchroom or something like that?
I think that becomes a little more delicate. I mean, I think anything, you don't want to close the door. You never want to say never, but I mean, I think it would be something that we'd have to be sure that the corporation is solid. We wouldn't want to be like Enron Field, and we're not saying that any businesses are like that, but I think, in general, that would be a larger commitment, but I think on the short term, we can definitely do a better job of business partnerships.
Mrs. Duffy?
Business partnerships are an integral part of working with the school within the community. We are very fortunate that we do have some very nice businesses within town. Analog, you mentioned as one, being a huge contributor to the partnership within this community. We've had several lab associations as well, where we've done some science projects, technology. We received huge amounts of computer equipment through our partnerships. How do we as a school committee promote this? I think that's one of our big goals. Our strategic plan mentions getting out there and promoting all the great things that this town has as far as its businesses and all that we do within our community for our schools. So yes, we do need to promote, and that's through the resources of contacting your papers frequently, as much as we can with all the great things that we do. Having people from the community who have family members working in the local community, local businesses, come in and see our performances. We certainly, I think, do a good job of spreading it by word of mouth. We talk all the time to the businesses as we go in and let them know, our school's doing something great you might want to come and be a part of. We have been very fortunate and successful with that. As to the naming rights, yeah, I think that commercialism is a very tricky, I think we'd have to run that through our lawyer before any of that began to happen. We're on solid ground right now. I don't think that we see an interest in that at this time. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. Well, I do think that that is one of the key areas where I feel that if I were elected, I could add value. I have worked for a leading technology company, Hewlett-Packard, for 7 years, and in doing that, as an account manager, I did work with schools at the K through 12 level as well as at the collegiate level, and there is a huge effort out there on the corporate front where we can do more to generate grant money, and I know that businesses are always looking for philanthropic efforts to deal with local communities and towns. And it's quite prestigious for a corporation, believe it or not, to be the leading technology provider, say, of Wilmington Public Schools. There is an opportunity to do that. Certainly, how we would go about doing that would be to work collectively as a team for the town of Wilmington and for the school committee to have a very clear message to convey to these local businesses and businesses abroad as to what is the mutual benefit for both the corporation and the school system to have a linkage or a partnership. And I do believe that with a motivating factor as to why they should want to do business with us and help our children and help our faculty and staff, that we certainly can do more to foster productive and financially rewarding relationships. And I certainly would look forward to doing that. I work currently with Agilent Technologies in the Data Networks division, and I do know that they are also looking for opportunities as well. And finally, one other thing, having worked as a teacher at Methuen High School, not every student there and even at other schools will be the valedictorian of their class, and they need to have opportunities and feel that they potentially, in some instances, are having what they would consider a K through 16 experience, where Cisco Systems has come in and has got them certified in their senior year so that they can go out into the workforce immediately as a certified technician, because they may not have the financial capability or the academic feasibility to go to a post-secondary university or college. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
One of the most exciting things I've done in the last 2 weeks was to attend that technology fair at the middle school with analog devices. And when I saw the picture in the paper, Mr. Tucker, of the hands, I was wondering, I looked at first to see, did he get a picture of my hands? Because like the student, I got to solder and then unsolder. And that was really, it was really fun. The hands-on learning opportunity that Mr. Kitchen and who volunteers and comes to our school system as a personal volunteer, that opportunity for the students, I wish more people had been able to go in and see this. We are a very, very lucky community. As far as the school system with the businesses, I'm currently on the fundraising subcommittee, and what we're trying to do is establish perimeters and understandings, because we have a lot of volunteer fundraising coming into our school system, and much of it has to do with the businesses and what we're asking of businesses. And so we're trying to get, what's going to happen is that the principals and the PTOs are going to come up with needs. We're trying to get it more focused so that we have needs and goals, and that we do fundraising in the community under those needs and with that focus. As far as advertising, it reminded me of advertising on buses, like giving away the naming rights. The advertising on buses that some communities had to come to. We are such a fortunate town in that we do not have to do that. Our town so supports education, and I personally can't say thank you enough as a school committee member that the town and the schools work so closely together. We don't have to think about that question at this point. And hopefully someday we will never have to think about it, that our town stays in the same financial condition that it's in, and we don't have to make those choices. Thank you.
The next question will come from the Lowell Sun, and Mrs. Duffy will be the first to respond.
Now, this was touched on a little bit already, but most people would agree that there's a lack of school sport fields in town. Would you be in favor of installing an artificial turf at Alumni Field so that it could accommodate sports events more often?
I guess what I can say is I'm not for or against. We have a study, an engineering study, that is going to be done in regards to the feasibility of the turf field. So again, we have to wait and see. I can't predict that. There is a shortage of space, but what we've talked about in the past are the businesses that contribute to our and support this town. And what's happened is we have several fields that are available to us because of AGFA. AGFA has 2 fields that our sporting teams use. Our school buildings supply fields to us. And the sports teams communicate so that there is a rotating basis so that each of the sports does have time to use the fields. That's all. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. I think at this particular time I don't have enough information to make an informed statement, and I do understand that this is a priority and that they're looking at the feasibility and doing a study. And I do know that Mr. Ed Harrison, the athletic director, has indicated in the press that the utilization rate of the field would increase by 400%. And obviously I don't have any metrics to back up that statistic, and none were provided at that time. However, if that is something that would potentially be a revenue-producing opportunity for the town, then that might be something that we should look at. But it needs to be a chief benefit to the students and to the athletic teams, and I think that our first responsibility is to our community and seeing that our sports programs are able to happen there. I do know that the school committee has done an excellent job in bringing a student representative forward to bring a survey into the school and actually talk to the athletes that would be directly impacted by this decision. And I think that their feedback and how they feel about the transition should be equally important to other aspects, such as financial feasibility. And I think that knowing where the money is coming from, it's coming from outside businesses. I think that it's not affecting our budgets, which is paramount and critical. And I think it's something that we should look at, but we need to be sure that our track events can take place, that our injuries are kept at an acceptable level, hopefully none at all, and that it's a best benefit for all parties involved, from the town to the schools and to the student athletes themselves. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
Not having children playing athletics at this point in this issue kind of puts me at a disadvantage. And originally, I probably would have said, here you have people from the outside who are willing to give us, to spend thousands of dollars to give us these fields. And then Matt Williams came along. And I have to say how proud, I think Matt Williams and what he's done, and he was very much in the papers recently, our student school committee representative, what he's done is show us the results of our school system. And having a young man like that who would go out and, with the encouragement of the superintendent, take that survey, talk to people, get this in the newspapers. And the only thing I'll say about it is I'm waiting to hear what the decision is. But guess what? We don't have to make that decision. It goes to the Board of Selectmen. So this is one time when I'm really glad I'm on this board and not that board. Thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Sure. To further the comments, Matt Williams, the school committee representative, did an amazing job. He took it upon himself to go out and create a survey and talk with fellow athletes in the high school and get their feedback. And surprisingly, you know, when I first heard turf, I was thinking that the kids would probably be in favor of it. It's something new. Most colleges have turf, professionals have turf, so why not? And then when he came back and it was kind of split down the middle, and he brought up some really good issues, like, you know, a javelin or the shot put in track couldn't be performed at the varsity field because of the turf issues, and things about with having geese come on in the winter. So I think he raised some valid points that maybe weren't considered. And I think as part of the feasibility study, it's great to have information and to have differing point of views. I think that's something we learned as part of the whole kindergarten process, where you have people on both sides. And the more information, the more educated decisions everyone can make. And I think as a committee, we're representative of the community, and we need to hear positives and negatives from the community. So I think this is just one issue where we can take the same concept from the full-day kindergarten, apply to the turf field, and apply to other issues, so that as a community we feel comfortable with the decision we make. Thank you.
The next question will come from the town crier and be answered first by Mrs. O'Connell.
Wilmington's MCAS scores have been on the rise over the last several years. As a school committee member, how will you help the administration maintain and improve those scores?
Thank you. That's an excellent question, and I think that is probably a central question in the mind of most people, whether you're a parent or a student or an educator or any aspect of the faculty and staff or the school committee. To answer that question, I was an MCAS Math Academy learning instructor at Methuen, and I do know that our entire program was funded with grant money. So I do believe that we would have the opportunity to possibly see if Wilmington was eligible for additional grant money so that we could have a multifaceted program, not only dealing with prep for MCAS, but also for remediation. And in doing that at all of the grade levels, I know specifically in the third grade level, there are some concerns statistically also with AYP, and I think that we have achieved stellar results in Wilmington at the grade 10 level, and I know a lot of parents have discussed, you know, is there more to education than MCAS? But the bottom line is that that is one governing principle that the Massachusetts Department of Education is holding schools accountable for. So I do believe that if we can have funding and have the programs and the curriculum to back that up. I was part of that at Methuen as well, developing a curriculum for a learning academy, that would give an opportunity to take us to the next level. I've been very pleased in seeing how many people are in the advanced, in the proficient level, and I do believe that we are in a very low failure rate within Wilmington Public Schools, and I think that the right programs with the right people in place at the right time with the most impact would be beneficial for the students taking the MCAS, and I look forward to the potential opportunity to be a part of that. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
One of the things that I was able to do this year, which I was really happy about, was to represent the school committee at the Commonwealth Compass School Awards ceremony at the State House. And our school was one of 37 to be recognized across the state. we are going to be a model for next year so that other school communities can contact our high school and see how our improvements keep coming every year. And one of the ways they keep coming is through the curriculum mapping. We have taken a real strong stand under our assistant superintendent, Mrs. Benton, and her role as curriculum supervisor. And what we have been doing is mapping the curriculum to meet all of the standards that the frameworks expect from us. And we've been finding weaknesses. Every time the MCAS scores come in, the faculty get together and they identify weaknesses in terms of questions, in terms of areas where the students might not be doing as well. And so we have the staff involved on a very basic level for working with the students and their MCAS results. We brought in the new Impact math system, and we were able to not only do we provide for the staff, we have provided the technology that sorry. I like lost it from him, sorry. What we've been doing is we've been providing for the staff the technology and the textbooks, the written things that they need to continue to work through I do not know why. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's it. Thank you. We're doing a great job because it's all coming together. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ardito?
Sure, thanks. First, I think it starts with the communication, and it's just another one of the many fine things Mrs. Benton has implemented, where she goes and actually graphs every answer and every response, and we can see not just at a test level, we can go question by question and see certain areas or certain subjects that we perhaps need to go back and review with our teachers and see, okay, does it make sense why our students didn't respond well to this question? And it helps us to really kind of address and adjust the curriculum. And I think as far as with the communication, we need the commitment. We need the faculty and administration needs to know that if they feel they need a new tool or a new resource, that the school committee will do its best to provide that resource. And then I think follow that up with more communication. And it's not something where once a year we're looking at MCAS scores and saying, asking questions. It's kind of an ongoing process, and it's an open dialogue, and I think that's what it will continue to improve the MCAS scores and improve the children's educations.
Mrs. Duffy?
Great. It's an excellent question. We're very proud as a school committee to have seen our scores go up over the last few years. There has been a lot of work on and efforts towards this happening. Having Mr. McAuliffe as the superintendent and Mrs. Benton as the assistant superintendent were some of the initial push to show improvement. There have been a lot of new hirings as well within this district, principals, and teachers. This year we'll be hiring 16 new teachers. And the biggest thing to improve the scores that this school department can do is hire some of the best and highly qualified teachers to support our students. And that's our job as a school committee, is to give the funding and provide the positions to hire some of the best staff, and that's what we do. We also provide to our staff professional development ongoing continually so they can support our students to bring up the scores. We also provide through our budget the tools. Our superintendent and assistant superintendent guide us on what those tools are going to be. Being a Compass school has been a fabulous and will continue to be an excellent opportunity for us. And another thing that we can do to improve is continue to provide extra programming after school for our children in regards to some of these academic areas, and to continue to support our families within the community on how they can help their students. And I think that's an avenue that we can tap our resources and do a little more in as far as communicating to our parents on how they can help as well. Thank you.
The next question will come from the Wilmington Advocate, and Mrs. Kane will be the first to respond.
Hi, Mrs. Kane. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Tucker.
We are indeed fortunate to have a great school system, and with everything from the sports teams doing very well to very high test scores. Teachers seem to like being here, and administrators seem to be doing a very good job. But there must be something, one thing that you just say, if I could just do this, this would really help the schools? It can be something big or it can be something little. What is that one thing that wakes you up at night saying, I want to do this?
Whoa. That's a tough question. I guess I would have to say that one thing for me at this point is to keep some stability in the system. I think that we're going through a huge amount of change. We're going to have, even though she has been here and the transition will be easier, we're going to have a new superintendent next year, and now that means we have to hire a new assistant superintendent. We're going to have a new middle school principal. We're going to have a new North Intermediate School principal, who will be announced soon. We're going to have 5 new kindergarten teachers and a brand new full-day kindergarten program that has to be put together. We're going to have at least 16 retirees replaced. We're going to have 5, within the budget, we have 5 new teachers coming to the high school that don't even count in with the retirees. We have 5 new job positions at the high school. And I think that stability is a major problem for next year. So I think that keeping an incumbent on the school committee for me would be important, and that's what I think about at night. I'd like to stay on the school committee to keep the stability coming for the system. Thank you.
Mr. Argito?
Sure. To me, the one issue I would say is to increase community awareness. I think we can do that through a number of different ways. The first being the school website. I would like to see that, become more used so that people frequent it regularly, knowing that the information is going to be updated and be relevant. I would like to see, as a school committee, we have our own website with, questions and answers. So community members who can't make it to our meetings, feel free to email us questions. We can post, our responses there. Being more active in the local papers, advertising the many good things that our students and our administration and faculty are doing in our schools. I think there's always ways we can improve, and I think in general that would spread the word, and it would benefit our schools, and it would increase, it would augment a lot of our other areas as far as fostering business partnerships and just being more prevalent into the community and more present. So community awareness, I think, would be, my one area where I'd want to see us improve on.
Mrs. Duffy?
Great. And I'm so proud of Wilmington, and as Mrs. Kane said, I too want to be back on the school committee. I think for me, what I think about is the growth in programming, because we do have an opportunity at our middle school with the early release time that our students start early and release early. We do have an opportunity there with our students' release time being so early to develop some more programming. I think that's one vision that we have as a school committee, that we do want to develop that programming more. And if you look at the high school, continued growth in that program, Mrs. Kane mentioned that we have 5 new teachers that we've brought on board for the high school, because we do understand and realize that some of our seniors may have a little extra time there, and we want to give them opportunity with that time. We want to look at what kind of classes can make a well-rounded student, and I think we really want to look at what else we can provide for all of our students, for those that are going to college, those that are going to junior college, those that are going on to a career, what else we can provide. So I really think the growth is in programming for Wilmington Public Schools.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. This is an excellent question, and I'm actually very enthusiastic about the opportunity to answer it. And I think the best thing that we can do, and what is the one thing, is to just get the people within the community very excited about the community, not only on voting, but also just education as a whole. The school committee itself sets the tone and the tenor and the motivating force for the Wilmington public school system. We set the pulse, we set the standard, and we hold people accountable at all levels. And I think as an individual contributor and a quality team member, you're responsible for the citizenship and the community aspect of things, as well as the quality education that takes place within the confines of the buildings. And I think that starts with premier faculty and staff and getting parents and students excited. I was raised in Wilmington. I attended public schools K through 12. I live as a taxpayer. I want not only the Wilmington public school system, but every taxpayer in town to be excited knowing that every dollar that they spend towards education is being used for all the right things and taking us to the next level. I believe in expanding possibilities. What we need to do as a school committee to take an already excellent school district to the next level. As it stands today, the school system within Wilmington is fantastic, and I believe firmly that it can be even better tomorrow. As we put new faces across the leadership roles, I believe there is room for one more, and I can certainly support the incumbent candidates to want to remain in their elected capacity. I am here tonight not to tell you why to not vote for them, but simply why you should consider voting for me. And I think it's a great opportunity. I have a lot of respect for them, having given their time and their service. It's not just 2 meetings a month. It's not just sitting for 2-3 hours on the board. There's a lot more that goes into it. And I'd like to be part of the strategic plan. It's on the front end. And I believe that there's an exciting future in store for all of us with a little hard work and effort. Thank you.
The next question will come from the Lowell Sun, and Mr. Ardito will be the first to respond.
I'm sure you've heard of the struggles that some surrounding towns are going through as they deal with pervasive classroom overcrowding and deep budget cuts, among other things. What do you think is key in keeping Wilmington financially and academically ahead?
Great question. I think it's not to rest on your laurels. I mean, we've been fortunate. The town administration, Mr. Kyra, has done an excellent job, has been very supportive of the schools, but I think we can't just rely on that. We need to go out and seek business partnerships. We need to kind of generate additional money. And one way is grant writing. I mean, more or less, that's essentially money money we can go out and seek with no expenditures. And it's just promoting that in getting the faculty and town members interested and committed to say, yeah, let's try to seek this money. We are definitely going to face some financial difficulties at one point or another. It might not be this year, next year, but it's going to happen. And I think the more we're out ahead of the curve and committed to seeking alternative ways and kind of having an A, B, and C plan, as these issues come up, we'll be more ready to respond, and it won't come as a surprise to us. I know a lot of people with the front page article in the Globe, was a little alarming at first. And I know, in talking with the superintendent, it's funny how the media can portray something where you look at the front page and you see this reduced funding, and it's kind of, you take a step back and you're like, oh, we just approved full-day kindergarten. But then when you understand the full implications, it actually wasn't all that bad for Wilmington. It was actually a pickup. So I think to get as much information as possible, to be forward-looking, and to think of new ways where we can protect ourselves for uncertainties that await.
Mrs. Duffy?
Great, thank you. Well, I think one of the biggest things to keep this in shape is that the school and town collaboration. The town manager and the Board of Selectmen are in touch with each other, and we do that through our superintendent and town manager. We know what's going on within the town budget as we prepare for the different contracts that we go through. We negotiate our contracts with our employees. We are in touch with the town in regards to being financially responsible with those. Over the past 9 years that I've been on this committee, every year we've done a fantastic job of staying within the financial constraints that we are given, yet still moving forward in our improvement of education for our children. We use our money wisely. We consider everything when given an opportunity to use that money. I also think another important piece is that you need to keep up with education. Education is constantly moving and changing, and there is a vision there. I myself have been an educator for over 20 years. I am presently in an administrative CAGS program. Passed my master's program in education because I believe in the philosophy of education for all, and that we work hard at that. And so I think being educated yourself and aware of the topics that are coming forward for our students to handle are extremely important. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. I think Wilmington is in a unique situation. Right now, we have a healthy budget from a town perspective and also from an education standpoint. And I think what it's clear and important to mention is that the town is very invested in education. We have experienced an increase in our funding from the town. We have received an increase in our aid from Chapter 70 funding. And I think it's important to recognize that from FY07 into FY08, we are actually going to receive a 5.57% increase from the town budget itself. And if I could be so kind as to repeat Mr. Carr in his statement, is that the increase is wholly demonstrative of the town's awareness that educating its young people is a priority second to none. And I think that to echo the sentiments of the other candidates, that top-down, bottoms-up communication and accountability from a town manager to a selectman level to every form of town government, so that all of us sharpen our pencils, all of us are critical thinkers and creative problem solvers as to how we can be fiscally responsible and spend the money in the best places for the best impact, for the best education. Obviously, we want to see Wilmington be on the forefront of technology, have a full array of activities during school, after school, before school. I think it's important that we do continue to do that. I think FY09 is going to be the first challenge that Wilmington is going to see, and it's clearly been said and has been stated at all levels. And I think when people make their decisions on Election Day, I think that you need to have that in your mind, is that everything is great when we're going up and to the right, but when we are getting into a situation where we need to kind of batten down the hatches and really look at budgets and relook at things, who do you want representing your interests, and who do you want to see making sure that every dollar is spent to the best of everyone's ability and for the best of the children of Wilmington, keeping them first at all times? Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
Despite the dire predictions for the last few years, we have been very fortunate in that we have a collaborative system here in Wilmington. And that collaborative system includes the town manager, board of selectmen, the school committee, and our legislative representatives. And last year, Mrs. Duffy and myself and other members of the school committee visited our representatives at Day on the Hill, and our efforts, plus everyone else who helped, who wrote to them and called to them, helped us with our Chapter 70 funding, helped to increase the Chapter 70 funding. So we have our legislative team that we keep in close contact with. When we're preparing our budget, our superintendent and assistant superintendent are in constant contact with the town manager, and they work together to make sure that we keep in with town constraints. And if there's some major project, for instance, a new roof or a new boiler, then it goes on a warrant article and it's separated out of the budget. As far as the second part of that question, how do we keep academically ahead? That is actually what our assistant superintendent is. That's the main job of our assistant superintendent, to be in charge of the academic growth of our school system. And we hope and we know under Mrs. Benton, we are going to find someone as fine at that job as she was. And with the professional development that we bring forward to our staff, and with the cooperation and the support of this committee, we are going to continue to be academically forward-thinking and forward-moving. Thank you.
The next question will come from the Wilmington Town Crier, and Mrs. Duffy will be the first to respond.
The school committee was unanimous in its vote to implement a full-day kindergarten program, but several members expressed some reservations and went so far as to make an amendment to the assistant superintendent's full-day kindergarten proposal, which sets a cap on the potential hours that the full day may include, which narrowly passed. Please detail for us your position on the implementation of the full-day program for Wilmington.
Excellent. Great. The full-day kindergarten has been a vision for Wilmington for a long time. I've been a member of the community for 13 years now, and I remember when I first came, that was maybe someday we'll have full-day kindergarten. It was always a big push. Under Dr. O'Donnell, I'm sure she was very sad not to make that happen in this community. She tried very hard. We were able to try for some grant funding. We had it for a short time and just didn't have the funding to see it through. Under this new administration, we've been very fortunate. Mrs. Benton, Mr. McAuliffe, and our administrative team filled out application after application for grants in thorough detail. Hill. And we were very fortunate that also Governor Deval Patrick was a proponent of full-day kindergarten. So those kind of factors at this point in time, other districts not being in such financial stability as we are, and our community having the businesses opportunities that we have all played a role in our being able at this time to get the grant funding for full-day kindergarten. I am in full support of full-day kindergarten, always have been. There certainly are some you know, small areas that we need to look at, and we have thoroughly asked those questions, and the school department is aware of the areas that they need to look at as far as building. We do have the space. We know we've got great teachers. We have an excellent curriculum, and I think this whole town is excited about this movement. It can only benefit us. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. As a spectator in watching the whole process, I obviously have a passion to see full-day kindergarten as it directly impacts my family. My niece and nephew will be attending full-day kindergarten within the next 2 years. And I fully do support the full-day kindergarten. However, I do understand that there is some parental concern and community concern about funding and what do we do if the grant money is not available in years to come. I think that the school committee, in conjunction with the task force that was put in place for the full-day kindergarten, did an excellent job in putting that all together. I attended all of the meetings, I attended all the public forums, and there was some insightful questioning and some debate as to whether or not this made the most sense for Wilmington, and I'm happy to see that we move forward. I think this is an excellent opportunity. I think that the statistics and the studies purely show that students do benefit from a full-day curriculum, from day-to-day continuity of activities, from peer and social relations, increased scores in English and math and in capabilities. And I think it's an excellent opportunity, and Wilmington needs to take advantage of that. I do understand the concerns, but I do feel that the school committee and the superintendent and assistant superintendent have done what they can do to reach out to those parents and help them transition to the full-day program. The one area that I had been asked if I were to be elected to look into is possibly seeing if the pre-K curriculum in the structure of that could be looked at so that students aren't going with such a time jump from a small day time frame to a larger. And that may be something that they may look at, maybe not. But I do think that full-day kindergarten is an excellent opportunity for all children in Wilmington, and I'm excited that we're moving forward. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
Thank you. Recently, someone heard me saying at the school committee meeting that night that voted for full-day kindergarten that I had my first board members' questions and comments. I made a comment about full-day kindergarten, and it was my goal to get full-day kindergarten. And now, right before my re-election, full-day kindergarten came about, so why did I need to run again? I think part of your question, though, Mr. Bjork, was that about the little bit of controversy about the timing. And for me, I felt that I'm not sure people really understood what this first grant was for. This first grant is for the planning. And as far as doing that planning, we're going to have people from the community, from the school committee, from the businesses, from the kindergarten teaching staff and other staff. It's going to be a fairly large committee, maybe 20 people. But they are planning. I didn't want to go along with that motion because I felt that we shouldn't, at that point, stifle that committee, that the committee is for planning. But it did pass with that motion, and so they'll work around that. And 5.5 hours is certainly plenty of time for the students to have kindergarten. But I want to say to the town and to the school committee and to the teachers, those teachers were the clue. If you saw them at every meeting on their own time at night for as long as we discussed it, and being 100% in favor of kindergarten, whether people outside the community are in favor of it or not, I think it's just a wonderful compliment to our teaching staff. They know what this is going to entail, and even though it's a short time between now and September, they are willing to put in the time. So, thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Thank you. I think everyone on the committee was in favor of full-day kindergarten. I think where it got down to the original motion was to say a 5.5 hour day, and I think what the committee members that proposed the amended motion were to give flexibility to make it not to exceed 5.5-hour days. As a committee, we're committed to policies. And I think if we put something in writing, a policy, and say 5.5-hour day, and then through our planning and process, we determine a 5-hour and 20-minute day is going to be most economical bus-wise and transportation and teacher-wise, then we wouldn't be bound to the original motion to say a 5.5-hour day. So I think that's where the confusion lied. It wasn't, the committee was in unanimous support of full-day kindergarten, and I think from our dialogue with the community, we wanted to give them some certainty as far as the maximum of the length of the day. I think there was concern that 6 hours might have been too much. And to secure the grant, we needed to offer at least 5 hours. So I think we have the flexibility now between 5 and 5.5 as we go through this process. So I think that's where the confusion lied as far as the amended motion and why it narrowly passed. But I think the committee was unanimously in support of full-day kindergarten.
And the final question from the press will come from the Wilmington Advocate. And Judy O'Connell, Mrs. O'Connell, will be the first to respond.
Hi, Ms. O'Connell. How are you? I don't know whether to give you the easy question or the really hard question. I'll give you the really hard question, okay? Ms. O'Connell made a good point. She said something that I think a lot of people are, at least want to put in the back of their head, and that is the good times may not be there in a couple of years. We only need to look at Tewksbury to see that they're expecting to have a $10 to $11 million deficit in their budget in just 2 years. And when you talk to the town manager here, he also expects the times may not be advantageous to see the 5.5% increase in the school budget. Name me the one area in the school department, whether it's a program or a teacher or anything, that in your view is indispensable for good education that you would not cut if the bad times do come to Wilmington.
Thank you. I believe the critical thing that we cannot cut is our faculty and staff. I believe we need leadership. I think we need the key people and the key roles. And I think that our faculty and staff are committed to our students, and we should equally be committed to them. And I think by making classroom sizes larger, having teachers teach varying levels of ability in the same room is very counterproductive, and it'd actually be an inhibitor, and it will actually take down all that we've strived to accomplish. I think that other areas and other activities, I think if this town is hit in a financial crunch, I think you'll see the community step forward. I think you'll see key businesses come forward and do more. But I think as much as we want to have the best and brightest students, we need to do whatever is critically important to see that we retain and entice the brightest and best out there for faculty and staff to want to join us in educating not just K, not just 1, not just 2, but K through 12. And I think that that is something that with the town government, as well as the school committee, as well as the superintendent and assistant superintendent, I think we will do our very best, myself if I am elected, to see that that happens. And I think we cannot sacrifice the education of our children. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
I have to agree. I think that, first of all, I have to state that I really feel the way that this town is run, the way that we all work cooperatively with one another, I do not foresee that we are going, these dire predictions that we are going to go the way of some of the other communities. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think our town supports education. I think our town supports its citizenship. And I think that this is not going to happen. If it did happen, I would have to say we keep the core of the teaching staff because, let's face it, I guess because I was a teacher for 35 years, what this is all about is that one-on-one relationship with teachers and students. That's what it's about. And that's what we are all about. The teachers, the students, getting their very best, getting the best that we can give them. But you know what? We can give them technology. We can give them all kinds of textbooks. We can give them all kinds of field time. But you know, if we do not give them a teacher who really cares, who really supports them, who is really there and will look at the curriculum and try and find a way, if you don't understand it by presenting it to you in this form, then I'm going to work at home at night, and I'm going to come up with a form that you will understand it. And I really feel that we have that staff. I think our hirings have been fantastic. I think our staff that we have now is fantastic. And I think that we continue to keep hiring great people, because Wilmington now is a place to come to. Think about it. Winchester came here and stole our superintendent. So I think that says something about how Wilmington is seen in view of other communities, in the view of other communities. So thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Thank you. The faculty and administration are clearly indispensable. I do believe there are opportunities for us to evaluate as turnover exists. Our salary budget is about 80% of our total budget. So obviously that's by far the biggest factor we're concerned with. But as turnover exists, we need to make sure that the teachers are mentored, are given the tools they need to succeed, and feel they have the commitment from Wilmington schools. And I think the more we can build a broad-based teaching staff, a quality teaching staff, as turnover exists, we'll be able to address that, and we'll be able to that's where the administration comes in to fit classrooms, to maybe juggle schedules, to deal with some difficult financial issues if they present themselves. But I think there are opportunities, and working collectively with the administration, the faculty, and keeping the communication open, I'm confident we can address them.
And Mrs. Duffy?
Well, Mr. Tucker, if this is your tough question, I'd hate to see your easy one. This is easy. This is very easy. And I think we've all said the same thing. Number one is the front line, and that's the faculty. It has been a mission of the school department for as long as I know to keep the numbers small within a classroom. We are 20 to 1 on an average for all of our classrooms, and we'd like to keep it that way, and that has always been the goal as we set forward doing our budget to keep that number there. We also, our goal is to have all of our staff highly qualified in the area that they teach, and that is a priority in our professional development for our staff. And at this point in time, we have 98% of our staff in their certified area highly qualified, and that's excellent. And we continue to strive for 100%. And as people come in at a young age and continue to get professional development, that will increase for them as well. I also think that this school department does a fabulous job in providing to our teachers what they need. And for those teachers that want to pursue specialties, the school department has also provided for our teacher to go on the trail to Alaska. Through our educational foundation, our teachers have been able to pursue endeavors in Australia and in Europe in different avenues and bring those back within the classroom, and we've supported all of that through funding. So we certainly see the teachers as the front line in helping our students become well-rounded. Thank you.
And that concludes the first portion of the school committee candidates night. At this time, I would invite anyone with written questions to submit them now. Okay. And also, these are now 90-second responses as opposed to 2 minutes. The first question, what is your main interest in running for your particular office? And Mrs. Kane, you're the first to respond.
Oh, okay. My main interest in running for this particular office of school committee is to continue the work that I've already been doing for the last 3 years. I've been on the finance subcommittee. I've been on the facilities subcommittee, 18 months on the policy subcommittee. I'm on the fundraising subcommittee now, the technology committee. I'm the representative to the master plan committee from the school system. And I love doing this work. I'm more busy now, retired, working through the school committee than I was when I was working. I feel that I have something to offer. I have a commitment. I have grandchildren who are living in Wilmington now, so I have a vested interest. I have a little one who'll be starting full-day kindergarten in another year, and so I feel that I have always said that Wilmington is on the cusp. It has been on the cusp for quite a while now. It is an excellent system, but it's not recognized. It is now beginning to be recognized. We are now getting the awards, and the achievements are being recognized by people around the state. They're being recognized by our own community. People are moving here because of our schools, and I'd like to be part of that and continue to be part of that. Thank you.
Mr. Ardito?
Thanks. Same thing, continuation. We adopted the strategic plan last year that's run through 2011, and I think 1 year in, I don't think we've accomplished fully what we set out to do. And over these next 3 years, I want to make sure we move towards those goals. Primarily, community involvement, community awareness, continue to build that, foster business partnerships. I too have a vested interest. I have 5 children. My daughter's in 1st grade. I have triplets who will be in kindergarten in 2 years, and a 2-year-old son. Relatively new to Wilmington. I moved here about 6 years ago, and I was presented with the opportunity to join the committee, and it's been such a wonderful experience, and I want to continue it. I've always tried to be one to get involved, not to sit on the sidelines and let other people make decisions or, handle things. I want to be involved and hear, meet other people. Different point of views are great. And I think this committee right now is definitely moving in the right direction. And I'm proud to be a member of it, and I want to continue for another term.
Mrs. Duffy?
Great. My main interest in asking for a 4th term on the school committee, because I love the movement this committee is going in. I have 2 daughters in the middle school, and my first term was when the oldest went into kindergarten. I love education. I'm involved and interested in the education of my own children as well as my neighbors' children. Every year I get prouder and prouder of this community because we just keep moving forward, and I can't sit on the sidelines and let that happen. I have to be involved in that. I have been on almost every subcommittee in my 9 years and continue to be on those valued committees, and hiring the superintendent and hiring an excellent assistant superintendent, our finance manager. I am definitely going to be on the subcommittee to hire our next assistant superintendent, and I value everything that happens in education, and I just want the best, and I want to be a part in helping that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. My candidacy has been centered around my desire to give back to a community that's given me so much. I'll reiterate once again that I was raised in the town of Wilmington, attended schools here, K through 12. The 5th generation of my family will be entering Wilmington Public Schools. My great-grandfather attended Wilmington Public Schools, and now my niece and nephew will be joining as well. I was actually told on the way in here that my great-grandfather actually was on the school board in the late 1940s, early 1950s, which I found to be an interesting data point. I probably should look that up. But that being said, I feel that with my educational experience as an educator, also with my corporate experience for a leading technology company, that diverse skill set would make me a unique asset to the school committee. And I believe, and I can support people's rationale about consistency on the school board. If I were to join, 6 members would reside and maintain their presence on the school committee, and I would be a new person coming in, which would offer a new, fresh perspective and potentially new, innovative ideas. And perhaps that's something that would be of value, and I'm hoping that the voters in the community will perceive that value as I do, that I'm looking for someone, an opportunity to come back and give to a community that has given me so much and help a high-performing school district take it to the next level. Thank you.
The next question. If you are to be elected or re-elected to the school committee, what could you do to be more frugal on school debt expenditures without cutting positions and programs? And Mr. Ardito, you respond first.
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, 80% of our budget is salaries, so we're really left with 20% to fund all other expenditures. I think as far as in with that doesn't factor in electricity and utilities. So our budget, our non-salary budget is already pretty tight, but I still think there's ways that we can go out and seek grants from businesses. I mean, there's one program in particular I'm very fond of, Box Tops for Education, and it's something that I hope through the Wilmington Educational Foundation we promote. Last year we raised $3,000 for that, and I guarantee with minimal effort we could get that up to $30,000. You all have seen them, the General Mills products. You see the little 10-cent little box tops. You cut them off. If we create an environment where you just can drop them off at a local convenience store, that's 10 cents. If we have a community involvement, spread the word, I think that's a way we can cut down on some of our non-salary expenditures.
Mrs. Duffy?
Great. How to be more frugal. I think one way that we do this as a committee right now is we do constant reviews of our policy and practices. One subcommittee that I was on was our facilities, Finance and Facilities Subcommittee. And with that, what we've done is review our policy that really the practice within the policy had gotten a little off track. So we spent about 6 months reviewing that policy and the practices within that policy and found that there was some rental of the buildings and the spaces within our building that were far below what anyone would charge for a cost to use the space. So in analyzing what we presently do and constantly reviewing, we can find there are areas that need upgrading. And that's one way we found to, we were losing money in our facilities to electricity and upkeep when we really didn't need to, because the fee to use those spaces should have been and now is presently up to par with other districts and other communities. So we feel that a constant review is one of the biggest things to be more frugal. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. I think up to this point, there's been an excellent job done on all parties, including our Director of Administration and Finance, to see that we stay within our budget limits. He does an excellent job in articulating what the budget is and how we're spending our money. I do believe that there is grant money out there. I am a personal testimonial of a school system that I worked at where our MCAS program was funded in excess of $100,000 strictly on grant money. We were chosen as a model for Massachusetts schools back 3-4 years ago, as well as a Massachusetts Compass school during that time. I also have a technology business background, and I do know firsthand that there are corporations out there that do have money. If you fit the skill set or you fit the need that they're willing to offer, you can qualify for those. I do want to commend the Wilmington Public School System for the grant writing that they've done thus far, and I do know that they see this as a focal point of interest now and in the future. I think our contracts and our procurement practices perhaps could be looked at, and maybe we can sharpen our pencil in a few areas, and certainly I'm open and willing to do that. To Mrs. Duffy's point, I do know that the utilization rental fees have been looked at and have been increased, and we should also look at other revenue-producing opportunities, whether we host events or we have athletic events or community events within our buildings that we could possibly have a mutually financial reward come back to us as well. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
Thank you. Having been a teacher of English, I just have to pick up on the word more frugal. I really feel that we have been frugal as a school committee. I feel that we just have shown that to the community by hiring from within and not having a $15,000 superintendent search. So that shows me where we're frugal. As far as the grant monies, our Director of Administration every month gives us a monthly report of the budget and how we're doing. We're very careful for the following year not to inflate the budget. If we find that we're not using a certain amount of money for substitutes, for instance, then we don't ask for more money the following year. We keep it at that level or even lower. So we're looking at that all the time. We also receive a monthly grant report. One of the problems with our community, I feel, is that we are doing things so well that we don't always qualify for grants. You'd be surprised at the limited number of grants that we qualify for because of the demographics of this community. It's not like we're not like a Lowell or a Chelmsford or people who have multicultural people in their community. We don't have that. We don't have that base. So we have to be careful with grants, but I do know that both under special ed and regular ed through the assistant superintendent, we apply for every grant that we can find that we would qualify for. So, thank you.
That was the final audience question. And now we're on to the third portion of the candidates' night. And this will be a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. And Mrs. Duffy, you are first.
Great. I am running for re-election to the school committee. I've enjoyed my time, I've said that, and I want to continue to enjoy my time and continue to help the educational programming for Wilmington Public Schools. I said I've lived in the community for 13 years. I have 2 daughters at the middle school presently and got on board when the oldest started kindergarten. They are involved with sports as well as academics, as well as the instrumental program. So we take full use of everything that the town of Wilmington has been able to provide, and I want this community to continue to do that. I've talked about well-rounded. We don't just focus on a small portion. We focus on all of our students, the students in the middle, the students at the top, the students athletes, the student musicians, and that's, I think, the key to this community. And I want to continue to do that. And we have a lot of vision in the school department, especially under our leadership. We have vision for more programming that will satisfy the needs of all of our students. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that. So please re-elect Joan Duffy. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connell?
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank WCTV and the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's Candidates Night. I'd also like to extend my sincere best wishes to the other candidates who are here this evening. I know in coming forward as a challenger, I'm putting the school committee effectively into a race which it hasn't seen in almost a decade. I am doing that strictly for my personal reasons of wanting to give back to a community that has given me so much. I love this town. I told you before, I was raised here. I attended K through 12, and my entire family not only has attended Wilmington Public Schools, but many of them still reside here today. My candidacy is built upon my professional experience in the field of education as well as my corporate experience, and I believe that I have unique qualities and skill sets that will add value to the committee and to the community at large while keeping the children of Wilmington first at all times. What I would kindly ask in closing is that after tonight, that all of you that are here present tonight and also at home viewing this, that you come out on Election Day and vote. We all can do our best to present ourselves as the best candidates and tell you why you should vote for us. But the key is to come out and actually cast your ballot and vote. And I think that's the part that is critically important to the overall success of our campaigns and the town government in Wilmington as a whole. What I would kindly ask is that you not only consider who is the best candidate, but if you were to choose the top 3 out of the 4, who would that be? And my hope and my goal and my intention is that after tonight, that you would consider Judy O'Connell as one of your votes. Also, too, that you can feel confident if you do choose me as a candidate that you are putting an A+ candidate on the school committee. Thank you.
Mrs. Kane?
Thank you. I believe that my record proves that I have the commitment and the experience to offer for our students. However, I don't feel that my work is finished. I feel that we still have a number of goals to be met. The smooth implementation of the full-day kindergarten, support of the changes for the new middle school principal who's going to be working with staffing changes. The middle school teachers seem to have a lot of pregnancies. There's a wonderful young group, perfect for them. And we also need to work on scheduling at the middle school. We have need for an extended mentoring program as we align the professional development with the new teachers. We're going to have so many new teachers that we need to let them know what Wilmington expects of them and how Wilmington can support them through a mentoring program. We need to expand our technology integration into our school system. We have a very unique technology task force. People in the community people throughout the school system. And you'll be seeing at our next school committee meeting some of the things that they have been doing. And we need a studied response to the audit that's going on in our buildings. I really feel that Wilmington is a school system second to none, that we have the ability to go forward, and that even from our answers tonight, I think you can tell, and I'd like to thank the panel over here for their interesting questions. Some of them were very interesting, I'll leave it at that. But I think they elicited a lot of information that helps you all to understand what the workings of our school system means. And I have to put on my glasses because, does that say stop? Oh, sorry. So I'd like to thank you. That's why we work so well together. I would like to thank WCTV and the League of Women Voters and the panel. This has been an excellent occasion. I agree with Ms. O'Connell. I'm going to stop.
And Mr. Ardito.
Thank you. I also want to start off by thanking Robert, the moderator, the press panel, WCTV, the League of Women's Voters, all the audience members tonight. I think my background, I bring a unique perspective. I'm a Massachusetts licensed CPA. I work for one of the largest employers, financial services employers in the state. I've dealt with budgets and revenues in the billions. I can assure you that our budgets are always going to be, we're trying to maximize every dollar possible. My focus will be on making sure our schools are secure. It was an issue that we didn't bring up tonight, but I think we're in good shape there. I think there's some projects that are in the way. Security is one of my main issues. Building community awareness and fostering more business partnerships. And I can all but assure over these next 3 years, if elected, or even if not with the Educational Foundation, I'll continue to drive that forward and to build these partnerships to try to gain more money and more exposure for our students and give them more opportunities. So I would like to wish the best to the fellow candidates. I think everyone brings a unique perspective, a great point of view, and I think it's great personally that that the voters have a choice. I mean, it's hard on an incumbent candidate to say that, but I think it's what's best for the community, and that's ultimately what I want. And I think for my children, I want what's best for them and for all the children in general. And I think it's reflective on the community and the school system that the voters have a choice of such fine candidates. And so welcome everyone to get out and vote on April 28th, and I hope you'll consider voting for me when you get out and vote. And thank you again.
That concludes the school committee portion of Candidates Night. I would again like to thank the candidates, the local press, WCTV, the League of Women Voters, my timekeeper, Odette Kent, and most importantly, all of you at home for watching. A reminder, polls will be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, April 28th. Please go out and vote. Also, please stay tuned for the 2007 Board of Selectmen Candidates Night. Thank you.